Hey.
Hi,
Hi.
Hi
So I'm
there.
I'm here today with Cathy Malkemes, who's the CEO of the Women's Animal Center. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me to join you this morning. This is great.
I know. Happy New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year's Eve. Here's to a better 2021 for all of us, for sure.
Yes. I'm feeling it. I'm excited for it. So I've got my cup of Joe here. You've got your tea.
Green tea, drinking green tea this morning.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. So I'm so excited to share a little bit about the Women's Animal Center with the world. With at least my world.
Me too. Well, and me too.
Yeah.
Always love to talk about women's animal
I
center.
know. And before we get started, I just want to put it out there that for people tuning in, if you have any questions for me or for Cathy, please just put them in the comments, and we'll keep an eye on that. Love questions, love comments. If you are a part of the Women's Animal Center in any way, shape, or form, you've adopted or you're considering adopting or whatever, please just share. Just go for it.
Yeah.
But Cathy, I was amazed to hear the history and the story of the Women's Animal Center, because I had no idea what was in my own backyard. And so now every time that I talk about you guys, I'm just kind of like, I'm sharing that. I feel like I'm sharing like a secret with someone. I'm like, did you even know about the Women's Animal Center? So please tell us a little bit about that rich history.
You bet. So, well, the first thing is people always say, Women's Animal Center, why is it women? Are you run by all women? And at one point we were. So our history really goes back 151 years now. Last year in 2019, we celebrated our 150th anniversary, and we were in fact founded by women. Back in 1869, SPCAs had just started. There were a couple of SPCAs that had been formed, and this group of women in Philadelphia, Carolyn Earl White is our founder, and a true pioneer in the animal welfare movement. Carolyn Earl White was a Philadelphian, and they wanted to do advocacy work, but they really wanted to take action and do some other things to help the welfare of animals. And their first, in 1869, their first line of action was petitioning the mayor of the city of Philadelphia to take over what was the city pound, right? The city dog pound, where animals on the streets were just taken up and taken to the pound and really left there. And no, the whole concept of sheltering animals and caring for animals originated with our organization, originated with Carolyn Earl White, and it's what makes us America's first animal shelter. So America's first animal shelter was founded in 1869 by a group of Philadelphia women. At that time, they were the women's branch, or the women's Pennsylvania SPCA, and that evolved into the Women's Humane Society, and currently we do business under Women's Animal Center. So Women's Animal Center, located in Bensalem now. We moved 25 years ago. We moved to Bucks County. Still service, the region. Still provide services for the Philadelphia region. And it's quite a history. And I think a lot of people don't realize, first off, the role that women had in the formation of the animal welfare movement. I don't, and that's our story, right? And this is a wonderful opportunity here with you to tell the story that women had this unbelievable involvement, and still do, of course. And the other thing that I like to say is that this all happened 50 years before women had the right to vote. So women were advocating for animals and the well-being of animals and creating this whole concept of animal sheltering, caring for animals, making good decisions for animals, and all before they even had their own voice through their vote.
That's such a great point, and I really hadn't even considered that element of it.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so amazing. And so America's first shelter right in our own backyards in Bucks County. Yeah. That's so exciting. Rich history, started by women. So, of course, you guys were just resonating in my heart and mind. And I knew that you had to be the beneficiaries of Woman's Best Friend Volume 3, right? And it all came together. And so, coffee table book, all about women's bonds with their canine companions, all the profits from the book sales going to a local rescue. And then in Women's Animal Center just had to be it. It just
perfect.
It ticked all the boxes. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a copy of Volume 2 here, just so people can kind of see what they're in for Volume 3. And I really love how it came together this year. And, I'm just going to show, I'm going to share with you a little bit of the layout too. This is Jenny. And I love her story. And so the layout's really beautiful, stories and photos. So that's launching tomorrow. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on to Curiosity and Coffee was that so people could hear all about the Women's Animal Center. And then so we could also share with all of those dog moms out there that Women's Best Friend Volume 3 officially launches tomorrow.
Right.
And so in a minute, I'm going to put in the ticker, the website in the banner on the bottom, the website for women to submit their stories. And they can joyfully know that when they submit their stories, and all the women and their pups who are selected for the book, that the profits from the book sales will be going to you guys.
Fabulous.
I know, it's so
2021 is already looking up.
I know. So I'm so excited.
That's great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support. It's
my joy. And really, like, one of the things I love so much about the project is that it can't be done by one person, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I take the photos and I tell the stories, but I don't have anything without the women who share their stories about their bonds with their dogs. Right. I can't do it without them. And then we can't do it without you guys, because you guys help us put the stories out there as well to your community and to your followers. And then, we can't all, no one of us can save the animals.
No, absolutely.
So we have to come together, and we can't save those animals without the Women's Animal Center and organizations like yours. And so I think one of the things that makes the project so amazing is that it has to be a community. Mm-hmm. It has to be a community of sharing. And so many people's lives are enriched by it. I know so many women's lives are enriched by each other's stories and experiences. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's just one of my favorite things about Woman's Best Friend. So I'm excited. New Year's Day, floodgates open. We want to see all the dog moms sharing all their stories. And I'm going to actually update our ticker, our banner on the bottom here, so that women know where to go. So it'll have the website down there too.
Perfect. I was going to say to you too, Kristen, that, even talking, as you're talking about this community coming together and women's stories with their pets, it's you were ahead of the curve, I'll say, because, this year, of course, during the pandemic, we've heard a lot about there've been media and stories in the press around that bond that people have had with them,
Yes.
especially during the pandemic, right? Something that you knew, something that I've known,
Yes.
that those of us who have pets in our lives and love our pets like family, already have known. But adoptions and people bringing a new pet into their home, it's reached a new time, right? So
yes.
here we get to tell some of those stories, but even stories that that existed prior to the pandemic. So.
Yes, I've had a lot of stories come to me recently for Woman's Best Friend and otherwise, just people coming to my studio who want to celebrate the new addition in their home,
which
is the pup that they've come to rescue. Yeah, and I think even as recently as yesterday, I was on the phone with a dog mom who they talked about how they brought a new pup into their family, and it was the perfect time because everyone was at home. Yeah. And so it's so awesome and encouraging to hear those stories. And so exciting too. And I saw a meme yesterday that cracked me up. It was, it was like a comic strip, and the top of it had like two humans talking to each other saying 2020, it was worst year ever. And then it had two dogs talking to each other saying 2020, best year ever.
Really true.
Yeah. So I know there's been a lot of struggle and devastation with some people who have lost financial resources too, and are struggling with taking care of their pets as well. But there's been a lot of people who've been able to rescue a lot of pets too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm happy to say too that there are a lot of organizations out there who are providing support to families that have pets and are unable to provide food and medical needs and things like that, basic needs for their pets during this time.
Absolutely. We've even done that. The center this year partnered with Bucks County Opportunity Council and been collecting pet food to distribute at their regular food pantries. And because that unfortunately that need was created right away when things began closing and shutting down. And so we've consistently been at they have Fresh Connect distribution sites and in our own community, really trying to help families who need help with pet food. So
now would you say too that in your area, if someone finds themselves struggling to pay for food and things like that for their pet, the best thing to do is probably to reach out to their local food pantry?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think so many of them, especially now, so many of them are offering pet food as well. So
you reminded me that Mano in Maine, who is our big hub for food pantry and various social services, they have pet food as well. And it's a great donation. It's a great donation to make, for any of you guys who are tuning in and thinking about stopping by your local food pantry to make your regular donation of, canned goods and toiletry items for humans. Also consider bringing in some food for pets.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's perfect. So I would just say to people who are tuning in, if you're struggling with resources for your pets, reach out to your local shelter, because a lot of the shelters have connections, like you were saying, and have an answer. Or reach out to your local food pantry.
Absolutely.
Because, we know there have been studies that have been done that show the value of having pets in our lives, particularly during stressful times.
Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure that everybody is as happy and healthy in their homes as possible. Right. Yeah.
Well said. Well said.
So tell us a little bit. I know that you have a very special rescue pup in your life, and I love talking about Maggie. So tell us a little bit about how she came into your life.
You bet. You bet. I'm actually surprised you haven't heard Maggie bark yet. And if a FedEx or UPS truck goes by, all bets are off. So
right. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah. So Maggie. So I have been with Women's Animal Center since 2012, and it was funny because when I took the position, of course, my friends said, "Oh gosh, how long is it going to take you before you bring home a new pet?"
Right.
And at the time, I had a dog and a rabbit, and so Maggie came into the shelter, and I kept saying I wasn't going to do that right away because the dog that I had was a senior, and she did have some health issues, so. From a stress level for her and, being respectful for her, I said I wasn't going to do that. And then Maggie came into the shelter. And so Maggie, when I think she was brought in at first as a stray, and then we adopted her out. And then she came back and had injuries because we think she got probably hung up in a fence, had tried to jump a fence, and so she had a broken leg, she had lacerations, and so we treated her because at Women's Animal Center, we of course have our animal shelter, adoption center. We have a full veterinary hospital, not only just for our shelter pets, but for community pet owners, family pet owners can bring their pets to the veterinary hospital, to our veterinary practice. So Maggie was treated, and as I walked through the animal areas and the kennels, I kept sort of keeping an eye on her, and she started looking a little depressed and being in the kennels. So I started bringing her into my office and really sort of did this will be sort of my my office foster.
Classic.
Yeah. And did that for a couple of weeks, brought her into my office. I would take her back to her kennel at the end of the day, and one day she just put the brakes on and said, "I am not walking back down that hallway," and I brought her home that night. And it was a little bit of, I will say, it was a little bit of an adjustment for my current dog, Gabby, or who was our current dog, and but we worked through it, and everybody got along, and I think it was just stressful for both of them. But at the end of the day, here they are, with lots of love and nice warm place to curl up. And so Maggie has been Gabby, I think maybe 2 years later, we lost Gabby. And then, so Maggie is my sole pet and roommate right now.
And coworker.
Yeah, she still comes into work with me, not every day, but a couple of days a week. I'll bring her in, and she's great. She's doing really well. Her leg healed, and we did do some physical therapy with her, and she's great. She's really she's a great
sweetie,
chill dog. Yeah,
she's a sweetie. I will say though, she sleeps a lot on the job. So
she does.
So we might need to
come into the office, and they don't even know she's there, so she's really, So I think, and again, someone said to me, and I think some of the paperwork on her said, she's a fence hopper, she needs a really high fence, and that's true of a lot, of a lot of dogs, and with Mags, she's always sort of been content, and just, I think, and it back to the bond, right? So I think, there was just this immediate bond with she and I, and it's, it's that fit and just that bond. And she has not tried to hop any fences with me, so that's good.
She's like, just let me curl up over here.
Pretty early on, we knew she was here to stay. So.
Yeah, she had decided. You got the memo. She said, She was like, I'm not going back
Yeah.
in that kennel. FYI.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think it shines a light on a few things. One of them is just, I love, that is your connection to rescue.
Right.
And your story is very much the story, I think, of the Women's Animal Center.
Right.
And I think that that's awesome.
Right.
Also, you touched on something that I think is really important, which you talked about that adjustment period of
Yeah.
bringing her in and your other pup. It took time
Sure.
for everybody to connect and become,
Right.
a family. And I think that there's a balance there, whenever anyone brings a new pet into the home, a new furry family member,
Right.
where I think that, some veterinarians, and you can probably speak to this even better than me, have said it can take several weeks
Months.
for,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
for
I
a pet to adjust.
people, we all have this vision, right, of the family pet, the family
Mhm.
pet and curled up but and that's a big part of what we try to do in the adoption process is
Right.
really educate folks in regards to it's going to take patience, it's going to take time,
Yeah.
and allow, when you first come home, some people are like, let's go to the dog park, let's go,
Right.
and there really is a time period where you need to just allow that. And we're talking about dogs, of course,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
cats as well. But they've been living in a certain environment and they need that adjustment just like we do when we move, right? And you have
Right.
to get settled and grounded,
Right.
where where your space is, and that takes time.
It
And
does.
dogs can't, they communicate through body language,
Mhm.
and so do cats. Animals communicate through body language because they can't communicate verbally. So it requires us to be even more patient, I think. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I would say there's so many resources out there when someone brings a four-legged family member into the home. If there's one thing that I want for people to know, which is just reach out to those resources, reach out back to the rescue where you brought that pet into your home. If you're struggling for any reason, and just, ask what resources are there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes total sense. Like, we think about monumental changes in our lives where we just needed to take a second. I mean, and I think 2020 is the ultimate, like, example of that, where there are many moments throughout this year where we've just had to, like, take a minute
Yeah.
and adjust to major changes. And, it's so true for the pets that we bring into our homes too, is they just need to get their bearings, and it
Yeah.
takes time and patience. And
People get used to, let's just start with getting used to the new surroundings and new people. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's such a important thing that you touched on even briefly with bringing Maggie into your home.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear what Women's Animal Center has in store for 2021. Besides Women's Best Friend, although I could talk about that all day. But yeah, so what are you guys looking forward to in 2021? What's on the docket?
Yeah, well, I think like all of us, we're looking forward to hopefully our world returning to some normalcy. Kristen, you and I have talked about veterinary hospitals and animal shelters, during the pandemic have been, we're considered essential organizations, essential to everyday life. And, just mentioning on 2020, our staff, and volunteers have been there in the animal shelter and the veterinary hospital all throughout, even, during the closures, providing providing services and adopting pets out. Now, as with so many businesses, we've all had to adapt and adjust the ways in which we do that. So, but it's gone well for us, and I mean, we've certainly been impacted by not being able to do fundraising events or do our group educational programs. So we've adapted that way. But when we look to 2021, I mean, we have a firm commitment in our community to continue to provide veterinary services. I mentioned we provide services for, we provide the medical care for shelter pets. But long ago, Carolyn Earl White also established a dispensary, or a hospital for pets. And we continue that legacy today. So our veterinary hospital continues to see family-owned pets as well, so folks can come for sick visits, for well visits, for their preventative care. That commitment for us, that part of our mission is providing affordable veterinary care.
Yeah.
So, us mentioning, just people who might be struggling financially during these times, our commitment has always been to provide affordable veterinary care so that pets can stay in their homes. Ultimately, we don't want them to come into an animal shelter. And so our hospital working side by side with our shelter, that's part of our mission to really provide that affordable care. So we'll continue to do that. And veterinary care is in high demand these days. Folks who are pet owners, and if you've called your veterinary hospital, so many hospitals are running very busy, and some of the busiest times we've ever seen. And some folks have asked me, why is that? And it makes sense when you think about we're home. So many people are home with their pets, and they're observing new behaviors, or observing, there's a puppy's side, or, so we're interacting more with our pets because we're spending more time with them, and therefore have identified some new needs that our pets might have. And then a phone call is made to a veterinary hospital. So our veterinary practice. So, things are busy these days, but we'll continue that into 2021. And of course, our animal shelter and adoptions will continue as well. We're doing all our services by appointment in advance. Typically, prior to the pandemic, we're the Women's Animal Center. We really look at ourselves as a hub or a center in the community where people can come. We'll have, we usually have our doors open, and people can walk through the adoption center during our hours. It's been a little hard not to just have our doors open and welcoming the community in. But we're hoping to get back to that, hopefully, when things ease up with the pandemic and get some normal business operations. And the biggie is also our educational programs. And we do a Story Tales program, which is on a little bit of a hiatus right now due to the pandemic. But we do have a Story Tales program where kids come in and read to the community cat room. So I'm really hoping to get back to some of those things. And we do programs in schools. We actually, another first for Women's Animal Center, we founded the first education program for children, because our founders, and Carolyn Earl White, believed that you really, one way to teach kindness to pets is start with young people, and start with younger generations, and teach them how to interact with pets, and just how to be humane and kind to these four-legged creatures that we're on the planet with. So we continue that today, and we have pretty extensive educational programs with libraries, school groups, Girl Scouts and Boy Scout groups, all of those things. Unfortunately, we've done some virtual things, but a lot of those things have been put on hold. So we're hoping to get back to those as well, because they're a strong part of our mission. Also, just that education.
Absolutely. I was just talking with someone about changing culture, and how we change a cultural view or a cultural approach. And we were talking about how how fundamental it is to educate children. Like if you want to change a culture, you need to change the viewpoint of a child.
Sure.
Or inform or mold that viewpoint.
Right.
So I love that. I love your education programs as well, and the affordable care as well for pets. That's so wonderful. And I think I was tell me if I'm remembering correctly that the funds from that the hospital generates fund the Women's Animal Center, fund the shelter portion of it.
Well,
is that correct?
Okay. Mostly our fundraising and development. Just our fundraising is really through individual donors. We have some corporate support. We don't receive any government.
Right.
We receive some grants from foundations. That really goes to
that's what runs the Women's Animal Center.
The shelter itself. So our fundraising is directly correlated to the shelter. The hospital, of course, the funds that come in through the hospital, some of those funds also do support the shelter, but it helps us to operate the hospital, some of our educational programs as well. So
I was going to say
fundraising is really a direct correlation to the shelter, and then the hospital allows us to do the hospital services and continue to expand what we do there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I was just thinking that people who are struggling with caretaking for their pets can come to the Women's Animal Center, to the hospital, receive those services at an affordable rate, and also have that good feeling too of even though maybe they're not in the place to directly donate right at the moment, they can know that participating in the animal hospital portion of it is helping the entirety of the organization. Which is a good feeling.
It is. Yeah. And there's, I mentioned, sick and well visits, and, we do surgeries. We of course focus on spay and neuter surgery. We have full diagnostic capability at the hospital. Also, we've got an ultrasound, X-ray, to do radiographs. So we really have a very broad spectrum of services available across the organization, but in the hospital as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, I'm going to open it up. If anyone is watching and has any questions for the Women's Animal Center or for myself, please go ahead and put them in the comments. Or if you'd just like to share, if you have any affiliation with the Women's Animal Center, or if you're a previous Women's Best Friend participant and you'd like to share a little bit about your experience with that, as we focus on our excitement around launching Women's Best Friend Volume 3, please share that in the comments as well. Share with other ladies about what it meant to you to participate in that project. And, while I put that out there, I will kind of bring it to a close. Cathy, I would love to hear if someone would love to make donations to the Women's Animal Center, monetary or otherwise. What are some of the things you guys are in need of right now? And then how do people find the Women's Animal Center and support the center?
You bet. Thanks, Kristen. So from a donation for the animal shelter of goods and in kind, we mentioned any dog or cat food, towels, sheets, blankets are all used a lot in an animal shelter. Sealed treats, sealed food. And then predominantly right now, we're really, because we don't have the volunteer core that we normally have, we're really focused on donations of sheets, towels, blankets, so that our volunteers can sort of manage that volume. And then monetary donations are fabulous as well, especially here we are at the end of the year. Make an end of the year contribution or help us move into 2021. again, that goes right, to support our shelter animals. And you can do that. There's a link up on Women's Animal Center Facebook page right now for an end of year campaign that we're doing. But you can always visit our website. Of course, there's a donate link right on our website, to make a financial contribution. And yeah, we truly appreciate everyone's support. It's challenging work and requires a lot of commitment, not only, and you were talking about this earlier, from the community as well. I mean, we have a wonderful community of staff, volunteers, board members, and our community that supports us too. And that is really making a direct contribution to helping an animal in need. And we appreciate any donation that folks can make. And of course, support Women's Best Friend.
Yes.
Purchase Volume 3.
Yes, absolutely. And then, I'll hit on where women can participate in the project and how they can participate in the project too. For anyone who's watching out there, Women's Best Friend is a coffee table book that celebrates the bonds of women and their canine companions. And it's filled with photos and stories of women with their pups. And really what the project is about is, first and foremost, it's about raising money for local rescues. And so the Women's Animal Center is benefiting from Volume 3 of the project. But it's also about telling the story of women's bonds and how our pups are there for us during our seminal moments in our lives, our highest highs, our lowest lows. They're always there for us, and really celebrating that. Also, the project is about helping eradicate stigmas too, associated with our experiences in life. So, whether that's mental health or poverty or breed discrimination, no matter what it is, we really believe that the way to eradicate a stigma is to share our experience and to normalize it as a human experience. And then finally, the project is about women being able to come in and honor the legacy of their story, of their connection with their pup, and to be able to have their own story told for themselves, and to also be able to have their own art for themselves that honors that legacy, so that they can always have that and always be connected to that personally. So, Women's Best Friend Volume 3. The other thing is that this is going to be the final volume for a minute.
Really?
Yeah. And so, we have a bunch of other really awesome, wonderful projects that we want to get to. And so this is going to be the final one for the foreseeable future. We're so happy to have it be the Women's Animal Center that we're partnering with. And so really, I would say to any woman who is considering participating in the project, now is the time to do it. Because we're not quite sure when Volume 4 is going to come around. So womensbestfriendproject.com, that's where women can submit their stories. And we have a comment from Mary. She said her friend Baxter was adopted from the Women's Animal Center. And oh my gosh, her best friend Baxter was adopted from the Women's Animal Center. And she could not have made it through 2020 without him.
That's sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Mary, you know where to submit your story about Baxter helping you through 2020. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, Mary. Awesome. Yay. Well, Cathy, it's been such a pleasure hearing more and sharing about the Women's Animal Center and how people can support the amazing work that you guys are doing. And it's just been such a joy to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Kristen. Truly, we're honored. We're honored to be the recipient of your good work through through Women's Best Friend Volume 3. So we're really honored, and it's been wonderful to chat with you. A wonderful way to close out the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I should have had like some confetti or something, but that's okay. Coffee's enough.
Right.
So I'll let everybody else know too that's tuning in. You can see Curiosity and Coffee on Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. Our next one will be next Thursday, where we will be talking to Darla Pompilio about organization. She runs an organization business called Your Task, Our Time. And I learned that January is National Organization Month. So she's going to help bring some sanity to our world. So tune in next Thursday at 8 a.m. to bring some sanity and some organization into your life. Well, Cathy, thank you so much.
Thanks,
and
Kristen.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.